So we live now.
but nobody's in.
hmm People should start coming in now. I hope, for your sake and mine.
Just
Talk
we
about
probably
bringing it
have to.
down. Um, again, on my laptop, it might not be a bad idea. Um, yeah, let me just see. I'm just thinking it might not be a bad idea to wipe the peanut butter off my mouth. To have somebody else log in from a different computer to see if the link works.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me try to do that like here. Like this might confuse the shit out of things, but okay. So this is me as Judd, and that thing's happening right now. So if I wanted to watch it, I click on it and it plays it on. Okay, so it plays it on YouTube if I click on it. And let's say I want to go into it. Okay, so it's actually showing it like there. Um, okay, so now let me just see if I go to Hangouts. Um, just let me know if anyone pops into the thing in the meantime.
It's 4 viewers.
What's that?
We have 4 viewers now.
Oh, cool. People have come
But I
in.
don't
Awesome.
see other names or anything here.
I don't either. Can anyone type people that are in? Like, is this interactive? Like, do people get to talk to us?
There's a group chat.
7, 8. Okay, people are coming in.
And there's no way to see the viewers, is there?
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's. I don't know. Can everyone hear us? If you can hear us, is it possible to type on this? This is the first time we're using Google Hangout for this, so it says there's 9 viewers. It'd be cool if you guys could type though. Mm, I have a feeling they click play on the page, and that's it. They don't actually not actually able to type. That kind of sucks. That defeats the purpose, though. There has to be a way.
Yeah.
Oh, I think.
Join the hangout.
Uh, I'm watching. Yeah, okay. I got someone on, but it's view only. Okay, someone's telling me it's view only, and then someone's saying, "Hey, can you see the messages?" Oh, okay. When they post them there. Yep. Okay, we can.
Post them
So
where?
if you actually go to the page itself, then we can. Like on the page where it's doing, we can see. So like it's Brew and Ahmed and Edgar and a bunch of people are all typing. Okay, cool. So what we'll do is we'll have both. All right, cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for bearing with us on this. This is like the first time we're using this.
Oh, it
So
comes up literally there.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay, cool. So if we have questions and stuff from people, you'll type it there. Um, in that where you guys are typing right now, it's not necessarily as intuitive as I thought it'd be, but anyway. And then we'll basically uh, like do a bunch of screen sharing and things like that, like do a bunch of critiques and that sort of thing. Okay, cool. So let's just wait a few more minutes till we get a few more people, and then we'll get started properly. It's weird that people can't actually
Get
come
in.
into the thing. Yeah, we could invite people. Um, Yeah, but I guess that can work. Okay. Is somebody just quickly type a quick question in that comment section? Let's just see how it works, like interactively. Like just type like any question, like what's the
Yeah, like
time when you can
speed.
get? Yeah, it's a little slow to type, but okay.
I didn't even get one coming by. I just got a high.
What's that?
I just got a high. I didn't get the question.
Yeah, that no, hi came through, and then should we just quickly set up a connect session
We
and
could.
just paste the public link on here? I don't know.
I mean, there are 29 viewers, right? Who are watching. That's what it says.
Okay. Jonathan's just saying that there's another version where you can have only 10 people, but everyone can talk and chat. Okay. So really, this is kind of something that needs to be sort of broadcast to everyone, and there isn't a lot of interactivity. But okay, so Tom just asked the question: is pursuing 3D only approach as an artist a good idea? Okay, cool. Should we actually answer that question for you? Do you ever wear a suit? Do
Why
wear
am I
suits to
getting these
weddings.
questions?
Wear suits to weddings. They're coming through on the
Oh,
thing,
here
but
it
it's a little
goes.
bit
It's
delayed. But
really slow.
that's not
Yeah.
English, bro.
Okay. Do you ever wear a suit? I wore a suit once for my interview for my first company, um, and I got the job, but I got made fun of, which I found out about like 6 months in, that I was the guy who brought the suit to work. So I don't know if that was the smartest thing in the world to do, to be honest, just because the entire industry is a lot more casual. So I think there's definitely varying levels that you can go by, and suit is probably the one that goes extreme. I have seen it, like people do kind of like the opposite, where a lot of companies do like the dress down Fridays, and I've seen a lot of people do the dress up Fridays, where on Fridays they'll just go in on like full suit. But I think in a weird way, it's treated more like a joke, just because it's very odd, but it's not typical at all.
Okay, and then there's a few other questions. We want to sort of start the thing properly and then do questions, but what we'll do is we'll keep track of all the questions on the side and then we'll get to them properly. So if you have questions, paste them, sorry, type them in and we'll kind of paste them off on the side and then, so like Tom and Leslie, we have your questions saved and then we'll get around to them. Um, that happens in your first job, cool. It's like if you guys want to talk a bit, like type there, it is cool. Like I feel like our initial idea was for this to actually be a little bit more interactive and that. So don't be shy to ask a lot of questions. Um, cool. All right. Well, we don't have a lot of viewers on right now, but I guess we'll just get started, and we are going to kind of have this recorded and that, and we'll be able to put it up again. And hopefully more people come in as we go. So the first thing we want to do is just do a quick introduction of ourselves and just kind of talk a little bit about that. Just very short though, because I mean, obviously a bunch of you in this already know who we are and that. And then we'll just talk a little bit about Game Artist Academy, which was previously Game Character Academy, and just talk to why we changed it, kind of what's happening with the school, just a bit of an update. Yeah, so I'll let Rich start off by introducing himself quickly, and then I'll do my introduction, and we can move on.
Sweet. So my name is Rich Diamant. I'm currently the principal artist at Riot Games. Before that, I was the lead character artist at Blizzard Entertainment, and before that, lead character artist at Naughty Dog, and a whole slew of other companies as well. I kind of bridge a bit of a gap between character art and tech art. So I have a pretty broad range of skill sets, which when we actually get into a lot of the courses, I go over a lot of that kind of technical stuff as well, which will give people more kind of like a one-up edge. So that's kind of where my skill set lies.
Cool.
on the quick.
Yeah, I just realized there's actually more people watching than I had initially thought. So okay, cool. It's not so awkward now to do the introduction. So all right, cool. Yeah, so my name's Judd Simantov, and I work as a freelance contractor for a bunch of different companies. Riot being one of my main clients. Naughty Dog, I've done work for Blizzard, Valve, Epic Games, so a bunch of guys. I work as a technical artist, and then I do sculpture and character stuff as well, but primarily as a tech artist in the industry. And I worked on Uncharted initially with Rich, and I worked on The Last of Us, and a bunch of different things. And you can kind of go on the website and read more about us. So I don't want to spend too much time on that necessarily. And if you do have specific questions about us, then definitely post them, and we'll go into more detail. But there is quite a lot of information on us out there. We don't want to necessarily bore you with all of that. So we're going to talk a little bit about the school and kind of the breakdown of this thing, and then we'll get going. We want to kind of get going with it as well. So just to kind of give you a quick breakdown of what we're going to do today, and then Rich can kind of talk more about the school as well. We're going to firstly talk through this, just kind of give you a basic breakdown of things, some updates. We're then going to take some questions. We're then going to move on to the crits. So we asked people to submit crits. A bunch of you did. We got quite a lot of submissions. We're going to go through and just look at some of them, critique them, talk about them. It's important that the people whose work is getting critiqued understand that we're not in any way knocking or trying to discourage. I mean, obviously you submitted your work to get feedback on it. So we're going to try to basically give you guys good feedback, the kind of stuff we would say to people if they applied to a company for a job, or the kind of feedback we would give the students at the school. So it's going to be insightful in terms of that, and it's hopefully will all kind of help you guys improve and that sort of thing. And then we will take a second phase of questions after that. We will announce a winner for a free semester of the people that submitted their work. One person will win a free semester. I think we may have decided on two, right, Rich? I think we decided on two people. Two people that we liked that we're going to give the semesters to. And that means you'd have to obviously sign up for the school, and then you would get a semester for free of the full thing, but you would have to sign up for the actual school. Hopefully that was kind of understood. And then we will basically just conclude it. So if you have a lot of questions, it's obviously important that you ask so that it kind of creates an interactive environment here. Cool. With that said, Rich, I think you can kind of talk a little bit about the school.
Sure. So Judd and I started this school for a couple reasons. So both Judd and I have been hiring, whether we call them hiring managers or just hiring in general, at a bunch of different companies for a really long time. And the one thing that we kind of found was, especially people who are straight out of school, there were some pretty big gaps that weren't necessarily being taught at a lot of the schools that are out there, right? And a lot of these gaps, it's hard because if you don't have people who are in the industry, you're going to have a hard time knowing these things. So what we wanted to really do was set up a place where the students were able to learn what they actually needed to learn. So if they actually went on these interviews with people like us, these would be candidates that we would be most likely to hire. That being said, the way that this entire course has been tailored into a bunch of different sections, and these different sections are meant to get you to a point where you essentially will be hireable. And the way that it has been structured out is really starting at some of the basic fundamentals, where we go over a lot of the initial kind of sculpting, and really go hardcore into that in terms of learning anatomy, learning how to do hard surface, learning how to do cloth, and really focusing on the sculpture in general. And then we branch out into a bunch of different areas like texturing, and one of the biggest areas, which is kind of the tech behind everything. The goal of this course is to really have you guys, or all the students, really do things where they understand what they're doing and they understand the whys behind it. One of the biggest problems with a lot of schools that we also have seen is that they either teach you a piece of software, or they teach you just one specific way of doing it. But what happens is if something doesn't work or something breaks, they're kind of like stuck, right? So a lot of the way that this course is being taught is to teach you why these things are actually happening, so that it can be kind of applicable to anything that you will do from this point on, and any software, right? So it kind of doesn't matter what you will use. You're going to learn what is going on under the hood, why it's actually happening, and what it's going to allow you to do towards the end is become a game developer, and that's something that's really important. It's 100% focused on games, right? So if you guys have an interest in games, this is what it's going to be around. Where I think a lot of other schools too will be a lot more generalized. They also can do that branch between film and games, and we do talk about those differences. But it is very, very specific in terms of video game character art in general, and that's the big thing. What we do for interaction is every single week we have a live session, and that happens with your teacher, and a lot of times we will also have some either guests that come on. And the whole idea is to give the students a platform to ask any questions that they have, whether it's pertaining to the week's homework or whether it's just anything in the industry. So what you'll get is a very clear insight into what the industry is about in general. And that's the goal. The goal is at the end, in addition to having work on a portfolio, which we will help kind of tailor and make sure that it's the best presented, so that, again, when people like Judd and myself look at it, it's the strongest it possibly can be. We prepare you for that interview process where you're going to ask the right questions. You're going to understand what it really takes to be that character artist in this industry, because it is a lot more than just I'm a good artist, and that's the thing that we focus on.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to add
And I'll
anything.
just I'll just sort of add to that and just say, right now our first class hasn't actually finished yet, and so the process of how we're going to go about contacting companies, getting people kind of jobs and that sort of thing hasn't come to fruition yet. But there's going to be a strong emphasis on that the closer we get towards that. And I saw Jonathan posted that he wanted more tech art related workshops, which we've put on hold to focus on the character art course for now. But a few of the guys that did that actually, very shortly after finishing those workshops, a lot of them got hired at some pretty cool companies. And we're actually going to be doing a little bit of profiling on that. I mean, it's not character art, so we don't want to spend too much time on it. But they were a good example of kind of finishing and going out there and looking for work. And we do have a current student, Juan, who's actually already during the time he's been doing it started to get professional work and that sort of thing coming in. So we really, really, really are kind of focused on everything we do is focused on basically getting people set up and ready to go out there and work in the industry. And we really, really believe that the only way to actually get people to that point is to be taught by industry professionals. So that's kind of our big motto that we push a lot of. And our current students, I must say, we kind of were speaking about this earlier when we were setting this up, and me and Rich were both kind of laughing and saying how we didn't actually even expect the students to make the jump that they have. Like when the students started and where they are now, it's pretty amazing for us to see how far they've come and how brilliant they're doing. It's like kind of some of the stuff we look at and we're like man, like we wish we were getting portfolio submissions that look like a lot of what the students are doing. So it's that aspect for us has been really, really rewarding, and the next step will be when they actually get jobs, and I think that's going to be a great sense of accomplishment for us and them. Rich, we were going to say that we wanted some of the current students to maybe just say something here and there, but I guess because it's not really interactive in the way we expected, it might be a bit tricky. But yeah, but there are a few of the students in this I can see on the thing. If you guys want to maybe say something from your own experience, just only positive, not negative stuff, please. No, I'm joking, but if you want to post something about your experience and anything like that, and also if anybody does have questions that are more for the students, if there's something you just want to ask the students, from their perspective, post it, and if they get a chance, maybe they can answer it. It'll be in the comments section. It won't necessarily be on the video, but we can read it out loud if we need to, for everyone to kind of hear it for the recording and that. But and if the students want to mention anything about the school, they can, obviously. And I will just say, we're a new school, and we've had our first class, and it's not perfect. We've had our ups and downs, and it's been a challenge. We're working through it and trying to get everything right, but we're definitely 100% committed to making it as awesome as possible and fulfilling, everything that we promised people. So that's basically that about the school. you kind of talked about the curriculum, right, Rich? I mean, I think you've sort of covered what you wanted to about that, right?
Yeah, you know, like I said, the gist of it is it's kind of broken down into a bunch of different sections, and each semester has its kind of knack, and the way it's more structured is starting from the kind of ground floor, which is initially you'll learn what that whole game process is, just so things are applicable, and that's kind of the core beginning, and then we jump into sculpting, right, and a lot of sculptural anatomy from the face to hard surface to doing cloth, just so all that is really understood in terms of how to do it, and then a lot of the stuff is repetition that we'll do. So over a period of time, uh, there's tons of these challenges every single week that students will do, and it just gets them better and better and faster so they understand it. But then it starts breaking down into a bunch of other sections, like the tech behind games, which is one of my favorite kind of sections, just because I think it's extremely interesting and it gives an insight that most places don't necessarily give, which is why all these things are happening, and how it relates to the actual game that you're making, right? So again, you're not just making art; you're understanding what that art is doing when it actually goes into the game, and then the problems that can come from it. Because I think that's one of the biggest things that students have trouble with is when something goes wrong in a game, or there are specific things that you need to do, whether it's optimizations. A lot of them, I mean, and this makes complete sense, is they don't have the experience, right? So what we try to do from this course is give as much experience as we possibly can in terms of problems that either we've had in past games, or even in a live section, a lot of students will ask about current games that are coming out and how they did it and what problems they were thinking about, and it's a unique opportunity for them to get that insight and those answers, and the answers to why people are doing it, because that's what's really important. And then we start transitioning into really focusing on the portfolio, which is one of the biggest things, is how do we get you guys ready from both of those angles, from the here's my work so that you can get in, to the okay, now that I got in, I can communicate properly and talk about that, because no matter what, you guys are going to have, every new student is going to have some kind of roadblock there, which is I don't have experience, right? So what our job is to make it so people see past that and don't mind it, because they know that you've done the work to research as much as possible and learn as much as possible, and have the best possible work that shows that you can do it. So that's kind of the whole goal for the entire course, and we break it down into an 18-month course, which might sound like a long time, but to be honest, it really is a short amount of time that we're cramming things into. So it is going to be work on the individual students, which I would love if there are any students to give some insights into that, but
Yeah.
some sections will definitely be more demanding than others, but it's definitely on you guys if you put the time in. Like Judd mentioned before, we see ginormous strides from day one to where people are at now, because people are dedicated and putting the time in, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And I'll just say quickly, we do get a lot of questions about, do we offer, things like environment art, and we offer things like this. The one thing that we should just quickly talk to as well is we rebranded ourselves as Game Artist Academy, so that we do have the potential to offer those things at a certain point. The reason why we put tech art aside and we put a bunch of these things aside is we really wanted to first focus on making sure that the character art course is really, really solid, the students are getting the attention they need, that we basically can market it properly, get it out there, do things like this, really kind of create a platform for that, and then we'll start looking at duplicating that over other things, such as environment art, lighting, more tech art related stuff, those sort of things. So by switching the name when we did, the idea was we could do it now rather than later, and we'll become all-encompassing. And the goal is to eventually grow into more disciplines that are game art related. But it's a huge time investment to set up the course. I mean, there's literally hundreds of hours of pre-recorded material and stuff that goes into it, and it's really thought through in terms of how we structure it. Me and Rich basically spent about a year before launching the school making sure we're happy with the curriculum and all these things. So there's a lot of time and effort that goes into that, but ultimately down the line we will what I will just quickly say to that whole thing too is we do get people that ask us about other things. The reason why we don't generalize is because that's not how the industry that we're in works, right? There are parts of the industry that are like that. There's like things like sort of casual gaming and that sort of thing, iPad, iPhone type games, where it is a lot more general and you might find yourself doing multiple things. But we work in the AAA industry and we cater to the AAA industry. And in the AAA industry, you essentially have to be a character artist. You can't be. It's good to have other skills, but it's not the whole like jack of all trades, master of none. You need to have something that you specialize in, and that's why we structured it that way, so that we can basically, develop people that are ready to work in the kind of industry that in the AAA industry essentially. And it's not, when I say AAA, it doesn't necessarily have to just be one thing. It's not just like like God of War, but even games like Riot Games, like League of Legends, and that, where it's basically even at a company like Riot, where it's League of Legends and it's not necessarily high-end characters in the same way you would for like The Last of Us. You still have dedicated character artists to do that job the best possible way. So
yeah, and I think that's actually a really interesting point, just to kind of go off of it. A lot of schools, I think when you see what their programs are, they do generalize a lot more, and there's reasons for that generalization, right? A lot of the reasons is it's kind of the same reasoning that any school will generalize in the beginning. They give you the like you have to take every single course, right, before you pick your kind of study. This is why they do it. They do it to give you that breadth, so you understand what's out there, and then you can, in some ways, pick what is your passion. The other thing that some schools do too is they'll allow you to learn a lot of different things just in case one of those doesn't work out. So what I've seen is like even if you know that you really enjoy being a character artist, a lot of schools will teach you environments, they'll teach you effects, they'll teach you everything, and then they'll also tell you, well, just get into a company, and even if you get into the company as an environment artist, you're good because you're in the company. But what tends to happen is if you do something like that, you become an environment artist, right? Like it's very hard to kind of make that transition. And what we wanted to do was really focus. So if you guys know that where your passion is to be a character artist, the reality is what Judd is saying. When you go to work every single day, you're a character artist. And what that means is that you are doing character art only. There might be some places where you can do a bunch of different things, but at that AAA level, you're going to have to dedicate your time. So we really focus on what it means to be that, to give you guys the best possible chance of becoming that character artist. And what that means is it's going to mean a lot of dedication, a lot of time to learn all those skills. And this is why this program is 100% tailored towards that. But if you're looking for something that's more generalized, that's why you're not going to necessarily find that here until we do potentially branch out into other specific areas. But it's a positive for people who really want to get into it, because I think there actually was one question here about like the challenge, like is it hard? Yeah, there are more jobs as character artists. Yeah, the reality is it is a difficult thing to get into, right? So in order
sorry, Rich. I think, what was which question?
it's the I'm a
VFX artist at the moment. Okay. Well, why don't we do this? Sorry, why don't we move through the questions in the order they're posted now, and then we'll go into the crits. We should try to get through the questions relatively quick, because the crits might take a bit of a while. Like I feel like we're giving quite long-winded answers. All right. So we're going to go through some of these questions. Please post more questions, guys. There's been some good questions so far. So if you have any questions at all, like, don't be shy, post. There's about 30 people in the room, so there should definitely at least one question from each person should come up. Okay, you cool with that, Rich? We'll just kind of jump through these quickly. Yeah. Okay. And then we'll do the crits. I mean, the crits, we're not going to go into huge detail because of time constraints, but we don't want this to be like a 3-4 hour thing. But we'll do more of these, and we might even then do some of the crits if we don't get around to all of them. Okay, so the first question that was asked is, what other engine can we use as a student for the course other than Unreal? So that's from one of our students. Rich, do you want to kind of talk to that?
Yeah, right now, technically everything that we learn in this course, and hopefully you should get this, will be applicable to any engine. It's just going to be a matter of how you, or where the buttons are and how you kind of connect everything. The only one that we are going to be focusing on for this course is going to be Unreal 4, and the reason that it's Unreal 4 is because it is one of the most it is one of the most used in AAA. But that being said, the technology and everything that we're learning behind it can be applied and put into any engine that is there. But again, this course is not necessarily about the technology or the actual software package. It's about how you take the assets and how you shove it in. So Unreal becomes a platform for that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll just say, even if Unreal is not necessarily like a lot of AAA games that have their own custom engines, right? So even if Unreal isn't necessarily used in all games, which it's not obviously, it's the most similar to the type of engines we use. Even when we have our own proprietary type of stuff, it's got the same technology, the same features, and that's, like Rich is saying, the fundamental kind of principles of how an engine works is the same for all engines, really. But obviously, like, certain engines are made to be a little bit simpler. So like something like Unity is a really, really solid engine, but it's not really catered towards AAA. So you could use Unity to do the kind of stuff that we're teaching, but we're trying to kind of use something that's very applicable, right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. And the next question was, is pursuing a 3D only approach as an artist a good idea? I mean, I think that's, yeah, we get asked this type of question a lot. I'll just quickly talk to this one. If you're trying to become a character artist, there's a lot of brilliant character artists that don't draw and don't paint and don't physically sculpt in clay. They do digital 3D art, and they're brilliant at it, and they've got hugely successful careers. So you can totally do that. Obviously, like we always kind of say this, you can do that, but if you complement it with some traditional art, that just makes you more versatile and more stronger. So it's not that you necessarily have to, but it does help you and it does benefit you. But we don't teach any 2D stuff in the course. We focus on the 3D art and the 3D character art because it's so broad and so vast within itself that to learn all of that, the texture and shading, kind of the retopologizing aspects of things, getting into an engine, all the sculpting stuff that comes into play. Just to teach a whole course on drawing and 2D art in and of itself is just a whole other year-long course. So yeah, you can totally just focus on that and be great at it.
Yeah, and I think to Judd's point too, it does help. It's a really good thing that could complement you. But in the games industry, there are people who are concept artists, who are 2D concept artists, and then there are 3D modelers, right? And the 3D modelers take the 2D concept and then they model them. So it's very rare that you're going to get somebody at a company who actually does the concepts and then will do the 3D as well. So that's why Judd is saying it's not really necessary. It just can make you stronger.
Yeah. Like we would never ever recommend to anyone not to improve, not to like broaden your skill set. I suppose that's, you know what I mean. You like it's impossible to say to somebody don't broaden your skill set. The more you broaden your skill set, the better you are. But with that said, if you're doing that and you're not focusing on something and you're not getting really good at something, then it also kind of defeats the purpose a little bit, right? So rather get brilliant at one thing and then broaden. Cool. So yeah, you're welcome, Tom. So I am a VFX artist at the moment. I think this is the question that Rich was talking about just now. I'm trying to make more game-related stuff because I would like to do characters for a living, and I think there are more jobs as a character artist in the games industry. Is it hard to change from visual effects to games, and how different is VFX from games? Rich, do you want me to take this one first, or how do you want to?
Well, I'll say one thing, and I probably shouldn't say this because you should come to our school, but actually VFX is a thing that's very needed in the industry. It's
very what?
It's very needed in this industry. There's not.
No, but I think what he's referring to is just the visual effects industry more than the actual.
Oh, like being a VFX artist.
Okay. Yeah, more than like particles and things like that. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so I guess. So how Rich perceived it is like particle effects artist in video games. There's a need for that. So if in the VFX industry you're like an effects artist doing particles versus like generalist in the VFX industry, then there's a big gap for that in games. But it is quite difficult to make that jump. So you would have to learn a lot because the way visual effects and particles are done in video games is significantly different from how it's done in VFX. I mean, there's just a lot of like optimization and things you have to do, and it's usually an area that doesn't get a lot of like attention in terms of tools and stuff. So it's a little bit brute force. But if we're just going to assume for a sec that you're talking about moving as like a generalist in the VFX industry to being a character artist in the games industry, it is a jump, and I think a big mistake that a lot of character artists make that come from film and visual effects is they think because they worked on those things that when they move over to games it's easy, and that they, in a way because they worked on something high end, that they're superior, or that they can just do brilliant work straight off the bat and like that they're going to be superstars. And the fact of the matter is that being a talented sculptor and being able to build characters brilliantly is one aspect. Being able to make that work in a video game and translate into a video game asset is a whole other skill in and of itself. And it requires you to be technical. It requires you to really think about how you're going to do that. It requires you to understand the engine, to understand games. And so it's not a matter of just, oh, I can sculpt an awesome character, I'm going to become a game character artist. So, to say how hard is it to do it is a little bit of a how long is a piece of string question. It's hard to say how hard it differs from person to person, but you definitely need to be open to the idea that you need to learn about video games and what it takes to do that in games. And, how to go about doing that, I mean, I can make the recommendation. A school like ours is perfect for that because we teach all of that. Reading forums, asking questions could get you also to a certain point. Getting a job at a company, as a first company that makes characters, and maybe starting out somewhere where you kind of work your way up is another way to approach it. Yeah. So, Rich, I see you want to say something. Yeah.
Yeah. The only other thing that I'll say without going too long-winded is that a lot of the guys that I have seen that have come from either VFX or film, whatever it might be, they tend to actually be even more specialized than games are. So like a modeler will just model. They won't even do UVs. They won't even texture. They won't do shading. They'll just make a high-res sculpt and then pass it off to somebody else. And in video games, a character artist will do everything. So they will do the high-end sculpt. They will do the UVs, they do the low res, they optimize, they get it into game, they set up the shaders, they do the entire process. In a way, it is a lot more technical from that aspect. And if you aren't technical, you're going to have a hard time kind of making that leap over. So it's very much like Judd said, it's hard to answer that question, but it is different. And I think both of us have seen, I mean, I hate saying it, but probably more failures from people coming from VFX on the character side over to games than the other way around, because the mindset's not necessarily the same, but it's not saying it's impossible, right? Like, it's just they need to understand it and kind of jump to it.
Yeah, I think it's important to just be clear here. It's not that that they failed because it's difficult. I think the reason a lot of them have failed is because they come over thinking that it's easy, thinking that games are inferior, and that it's an easy transition. Like, oh, it was awesome in film, I'm going to be awesome here. So if you open your mind to the idea that there's just things you have to learn, then you'll be fine. And I think that the reason why more have succeeded going the other way is, and again, people going from games to film, I don't know a lot either. Like, I feel like a lot of them sort of stayed, but I think if someone does make that transition, a lot of it is because games people even tend to think of film as being superior. And so they tend to like, I think that's getting changed more and more now, and you find a lot more people wanting to come to games than before. But there used to be a perception that was like, oh, if I go to games, I'm going to be making like, low poly characters, and it's so boring and whatever, and it's just going to be easy and it sucks and games don't look good and all these things. Versus now, it's obviously changing a bit. But so games people kind of thought that going over to film was a huge step up, and film people thought it was a step down. And I think that mindset creates a problem. So as long as you go into it with an open mind, and I will say, when you talk about, sorry, I don't want to give too long-winded answer, but you say there's more jobs as a character artist. That's a hard one to speak to because we don't have a lot of information on the statistics of jobs in the VFX industry. But what I can say is that the VFX industry is going through a difficult time in general, and so there, you do see a lot of people trying to move into games for more security. So I'll just end kind of on that. All right, Rich, we've got a few more questions. I'm wondering,
Yeah.
I'll answer one more quickly because it's an easy one, and then we can do we can go through some of the crits. So the one quick question is, can I apply only for term 4, texturing and shading? And the answer is no. We're not creating. Firstly, to structure it like where we got people coming in at different areas in the course would be very difficult because we would have like one guy here, one guy here, one guy here, and we would struggle to cater to that, especially as a school that's still starting in a sense. But also, like, we really believe in what we're trying to do. It's difficult to tell students where they are exactly, and that, okay, well, you need this foundation. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is take somebody from start to finish. And we really believe that unless you have a job in the industry as like a professional, like doing great work, working on great stuff, we feel like anyone could benefit from going through that whole course and would come out as ready to be a industry professional. And so we believe in that structure, and that's what we want to do. We might offer small workshops at a later stage, but for now, that's what we're doing, and that's how we're focusing on it. We feel like it's better for the students and for the people that take the course, and it's better for us in terms of structuring it. So, I don't know, Rich, do you want to add anything to that?
The only thing that I will add is that there's a lot of things that on a per semester basis are taught and roll over into the next one, and that is also where it gets very difficult. Is that the entire course was structured going from day 1 all the way through, not in these like very specific chunks. So if you took the texturing and shading, there's so much that's being talked about in the previous courses about what we learned, and it would be very difficult to just interject a student if they haven't gone through all the other stuff. So.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's move on to crits. Rich is going to share his screen. He's going to talk over them. I'll obviously see them, and I'll talk to some of the things as well. We're going to keep it quite general. There's a bunch of them we're not going to get around to. What we're going to try to do is for everyone we don't get to, we're going to try to send written summaries of just we'll write an email to those people, just giving a little bit of feedback, so you do get feedback on your work, but it won't be in the public forum. And we haven't selected these based on what we think is better or worse. We just went through in the order that it was sent to us, and we've gone through and we've just picked the ones that came first. And so we're just going down in a list of order, like in an order of what was sent to us. So if yours doesn't get looked at, it doesn't mean that it wasn't good or we didn't like it. It's purely just we're going to keep it fair. We just went on order. Okay. Cool. We will announce the winners. One thing is that we'll announce the winners after we do the crits. If you did win and you don't want to sign up for it, you don't want to take up your free semester, you don't want to sign up, please let us know so we can pass it on to somebody else. And we'll just email the person that we end up giving it to, and we'll just go through the list essentially. All right, Rich, do you want to start?
Yes, let's do. I think I could do an individual thing. Okay. Cool. You guys see it, right? You see it, Judd, right?
Yep, we see it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I move this around,
does everyone else see it? Can we just, like, in the comment section, can somebody just do a, or Jonathan, if you're still on my thing, if you can just say whether you see it or not. Jonathan's a friend of mine that's on my Google chat helping me out, and an ex-tech art student. Okay, but he's not responding, so I guess he's not my friend anymore.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, the comment stuff takes a little bit of time to come through, but I feel like people can see it. I think it's there. I think yeah, okay, cool. Yeah.
I don't see anything come through, but let's assume, unless you saw something, you see something, Jay?
I don't. I kind of would hate to go forward and then everyone's like, hey, we can't see, but yeah, I don't know why the comments are taking long. If just one person can just say yes, they see. Yeah, okay, Jonathan says he does see.
Okay,
cool.
Okay,
Thanks,
figure Judd and I will both like kind of tag team this because Judd is also very opinionated and likes to give his comments too, so it's going to be fantastic. Judd's actually very good at this stuff too, so that's the nice thing, is that both of us have more of a kind of broad range of that mix between the character and the text. So I guess we can start. Do you want to start with just like overall impressions?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we'll do. You know, overall, we might look at one or two pieces and just say, you know, Rich, maybe we'll do a quick draw over and that sort of thing. But the idea is to just talk generally about a portfolio and that sort of thing. So yeah, you can.
Yeah. So the big thing too, to kind of caveat this a little bit, is that we're going to look at this from a portfolio standpoint of a game character artist, right? Because that's essentially what we are doing. So from the game character artist side, if Judd and I were going to look at this from a portfolio standpoint, the first thing that we're going to notice from something like this is that, one, there's some good work on it, but what we do want to see is some game-related stuff, right? So the really positive part about this is that there's at least a bunch of different sculpts on here that are showing range from a sculptural standpoint, right? You're showing anatomy, you are showing things that are more hard surface, even going into stuff like creatures and stuff that's a little more simplified. And the nice thing about that is it's showing a range, and sometimes range is a really good thing, especially when you're starting out. That could be very positive because you don't know necessarily, you know, which place that you're going to go to is going to be looking at something more or less. So from that standpoint, there's some good stuff here. Related to characters, what somebody like Judd and I will look at is we'll say, okay, where's that translation? So what we would want to see is taking a character, let's say like this guy, and translating him into an actual game asset, right? Because those have very, very different challenges there, and that will show that you understand the game side of things, and that could mean throwing it into something like a real-time engine, like either Unreal or even Marmoset, to kind of show it off. It shows that you understand those qualities and the properties of what makes something real-time. So that goes back a little bit, I think, to even what Judd was mentioning before, of the kind of VFX side versus the game side, is we need to see that. So that would be the first thing that, looking at here, I would say you need to start doing, is take some of these pieces and actually translate them into games so that you could understand that.
Yeah.
Do you
Rich, do me a favor. Yeah, I was gonna say, just click on that guy. What I'll do is I'll go through and just give a quick of like my feedback on that particular guy, and then you can kind of do that on a few others as well if you want. Do you want to just click back on him quick?
Back on who?
And again, I'm not going to do on the poly count challenge one, the guy in the suspenders.
Oh yes, sorry.
Yeah. So to me, this character is awesome. I love the feeling. I love the style. I think he's got a really cool kind of pushed proportions and shape to him. So Renato, like, for me, if I was to kind of look at this and say, okay, I'm going to give you some feedback on it, a few big things that jump out to me right off the bat. You know, one is, and I see this through a lot of your work, I think you could definitely benefit from improving on your texturing and really pushing some variation in your texturing. Like when you look at the arms and the clothing, it's generally quite flat, right? So if you just added like more variation in that, you know, more in the skin tone, and like create like different shades and different colors and things like that, even in the face, you would end up getting something that is visually got like a lot of texture and interest to it across, you know, through it. I feel like your anatomy and that is feeling really nice. You've actually got a fantastic sculptural sensibility, so your forms blend nicely, which is actually quite a difficult thing to get right. And then when you're doing something like this, definitely put it. Oh, Rich, why did you click out of it?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I forgot that you're not showing yours. My bad.
Yeah, sorry. So when you're doing stuff like this too, the lighting on him is quite flat. And like, unfortunately, when you're displaying your character and your character work, lighting plays a big role in terms of showing form and in terms of how you present it. So make sure that you do some cool lighting so that he doesn't end up looking too flat, and so that, you know, it presents it in a way that's got some cool contrast and shadow. Lighting really, really matters in terms of how you present your work. You don't have to be a lighting expert. Just try to do something like that. And then the final thing I'll just say is one of the things you can do and you should do a bit of too, and this is something that me and Rich go back and forth on quite a bit, is when you're doing stuff like this and you wanted to kind of capture people, try to pose your character to look pretty cool. Like even if it's just when you get into production, you can't do that. You actually have to turn it into a more neutral pose than this. But when you're displaying your work as part of like you're trying to get people to like your characters and that, put him in a cool pose, get him a bit of a facial expression, make him feel a little bit dynamic. It gives your character more personality and more life, and it's something that is you won't be able to do in production. But while you're trying to get work and while you're trying to develop a portfolio, it'll really kind of go a long way to helping people to kind of help your work and to sort of capture people's eyes. Cool. That's me, Rich.
That's you.
That's me.
Good comments, Joe. Good comments.
Thanks.
I can go off of this one too because there's definitely a lot of positives, like Judd said. There's definitely another side, which is how do you take this to the next level? And if I was going to critique that side of things, there's definitely some things from an anatomy side that could be kind of benefited, which are a little more kind of like planes in some of the areas to really show kind of some of like the structure and the form. I think from Judd's point, there's some really good silhouette stuff here, but definitely when you start getting down to the pants and the cloth, you need to break that up a bit, because I don't think I could zoom back here, but if you actually took this image and you zoom back, a lot of this silhouette, especially on the pants side, becomes very flat and very straight. And if you're creating something, especially from games, games tend to be viewed at a much smaller scale than something like a film, right, where you're actually zoomed in. So for a character like this, especially somebody who you're exaggerating proportions, you probably would want to do a little bit of that from a silhouette standpoint as well from the pants, where some of these folds are actually kind of broken out, and then some of these will give some silhouette changes and some meaning to it that would just make a little more sense. I echo Judd's comments on the texturing. I think that's definitely something that could use a slight bit of work. I think you definitely need some contact shadows in here too, which is a bit of texturing / rendering that just make things feel like it sits correctly and comes together. I think at ends of cloth, we talk about this a lot in the class as well. It's one of the biggest and one of the most important things that tells you what the type of cloth and the type of material actually is. And without having proper transitions at the end of your cloth, you lose a little bit about what that fabric is and what the material is, because you're gonna tell very much if it's a soft fabric or if it's something that's hard based off of the ends. And it's something that's very easy for you or for anybody to actually look at is look at all your cloth that you're wearing. Clothes right now that you're wearing, right? Everything at the end has some kind of, whether it's stitching or end, which would be very straight, it'd be flat. The thickness and or how thin it is going to really dictate the type of material it's going to be, as well as the type of folds that are happening inside. So those are things that you definitely need to be conscious about, which we do go over and we do talk about. And that will literally take a piece like this, which is very nice from the far, to awesome as that complete package when you look at it.
Cool. Rich, do you want to just go back out to just seeing all of them, and we'll just kind of say one last thing, we'll move on. The one thing for me when I look at all of this is, like Rich said, you've got great variety. I do feel like, and this is something we saw in a few of the portfolios, and I think Rich is kind of saying this too, it doesn't feel like, it feels like a lot of these pieces aren't finished. Whether it's because they're not textured or maybe the full body isn't in or whatever it is. And not having a full body is not a big deal, but I think as a whole, it would definitely help your portfolio to have one or two pieces that just look really finished. That means textured, shaded, lit nicely, just pieces that somebody can look at and say, can this person take a piece from concept all the way to a final character in an engine type of thing. So that would be my last comment for this portfolio. But I feel like your work is great, and I think.
And Leslie asked this. Yeah. Leslie asked this question too, which I know we're not doing 100% questions, but it pertains to what we're talking about, which is the how can you show an image or model that this work can transfer to game engine, and it's very easy. Show the game version, right? Show the model in Marmoset. Show the wireframe. Show that any game artist can look at a wireframe and be like, wow, that is a game character, right? It's not just a high poly sculpt. You could see it with the norm maps on there, so you could do multiple views, which is here's my model in game engine, and here's the wireframe, and I've even seen, which is really cool, people break down little texture swatches, which shows what textures are actually being used on there. So there's plenty of different ways to do it, but yeah, I think the wireframe is probably one of the easiest ways that just show.
Even if you just wrote it, right? Even if you just said like rendered in Marmoset or rendered in Unreal or something, right? So that it's very clear that this is in the engine now. I mean, obviously, don't lie about that. Make sure you actually do it in the engine. But I think if you just specified that, even that's a clear way to do it. Sorry, Leslie, I didn't understand the question, but now I do. So I wrote, "What do you mean?" But yeah, Rich understood it, which is all that matters.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to the next one.
Okay. This one, when we were actually looking at it, is it's actually a really pretty portfolio. It's got some really great work on it. Oddly enough, one of my first critiques of this was just some of the interface to getting to the images. This is actually something that's really important, and it's probably a good thing to talk about just in general, is that when we get portfolio submissions, or we get anything that's whether it's, most things are actually just a website. People are going to be looking at this extremely quick, so it needs to be extremely easy to navigate and fast to find the actual work. And the website in general, to me, is just a tiny bit complicated. But once you actually do go into everything and you start seeing it, there's some beautiful work that's in here. My actual comments from the works standpoint is, again, a little bit echoed in the what is this portfolio being tailored towards? Because if I'm taking it from a game standpoint, there's nothing in here that actually shows the game side of thing. It shows really nice sculpts, and clearly a good understanding of especially facial anatomy. There's some really nice stuff that's in here. Another comment that I would probably have is that a lot of these pieces are definitely more tailored towards almost like traditional sculpts in a way, as opposed to like a final production piece. And again, we would be looking for something that actually shows a final piece. So what I would really recommend for some of these is, if you are interested in doing the kind of game side of things, is take some of these pieces to more of a final quality from even just a sculptural standpoint, right? Like show the entire thing. Like there's the one piece here which is really nice, but a lot of these are all cut off in a bunch of different areas, right? And it just doesn't show the character as a whole. But some really gorgeous pieces that are actually on here from a sculptural standpoint. So
cool. Yeah, so I'll just say too, like, firstly, when we first saw this portfolio, we're like, wow, this is great. Like, there's some amazing, beautiful stuff. And I think the one thing, and to my previous comment, the one thing in this work that I loved was that the stuff is posed. So the characters have a lot of emotion and a lot of feeling, and that is such a huge, but we can talk about the technical side of characters all we want, but characters is also about bringing something to life. It's about kind of getting to like feel that character. You look at it and it should sort of say something about the character. And that gets lost in production a lot, like I've said. But in your portfolio is a great opportunity to do it, and I feel like that's really in this work. Like Edgar's really done that. You feel the characters. There's some like beautiful stuff. I mean, and I'm going to kind of echo what Rich is saying. I think the only problem for us, if you were to send this into us working at a company, is that a lot of this stuff is sculptural, so there isn't a lot of texture in, or I don't think there's any texture in, or shading or anything. So again, that's the kind of thing that you would have to have that for a game company. They expect the character artist to do the texture and shading. It also means we don't really get to see, like, can you lay out UVs? Do you understand how to do normal map sampling and that kind of stuff? Those are all the technical aspects of things that are very important. And we can find a brilliant sculptor who has no idea how to do those things, and we won't end up hiring them because we need those things. They need to be able to texture really well, to lay out UVs, to sample normal maps, to do shading, to get into an engine, all those type of things. So that honestly is kind of the only big thing for me. And the last comment I will say too is I do, like, if Rich just keeps it on what it's on right now, I do think that you should try to show your best work only. I think there's a slight discrepancy in quality. I think like the one that's this guy with the bow tie is a bit weaker than some of the other pieces. And one of the very
Even this
important
guy
things
too.
to do, yeah, exactly. And one of the very important things to do in your portfolio is to show your best work. Rather have 3 or 4 pieces that are brilliant than to have 40, because what happens is the people looking at the work goes like, oh, which one is his best? Which one does he think is good? Why is he showing this? So we'll show your best. Edgar, I can see you said you have one game character. Do you wanna maybe just scroll up, Rich, and just see where that is? But either way, Edgar, I think the general thing is just the overall feeling of your portfolio doesn't feel like a character artist. It feels like a sculptural, like, and very much like a traditional sculpture kind of portfolio. But maybe it's just the navigation of the website. I don't know.
Yeah,
Let's
maybe
click
it's
on
is
the
it this one?
grasshopper thing.
I don't know. Yeah, that's why some of the navigation is hard to. Yeah, the low poly. This might be it.
Oh, there. Game character made with ZBrush. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even then, I think with that piece, like your texturing and your shading, and that could really be kind of upped and pushed. But I think the comments still hold true. I think your work is brilliant, and I think it's very impressive, and you've got some amazing sculptural stuff in there. It's just a matter of now taking it and going in a way where it's very obvious that okay, that you can do UVs texturing really well, that you can get into an engine, and that you can get the stuff sampled, right? Like not just have it be a high-res sculpt, but get it on as like a game character too, right? Like Rich said with the wireframe, where you can go like, oh wow, this dude kind of knows that process beginning to end.
Yeah, I also think that a lot of your work, and again, it's weird because I actually think it's very beautiful and it's I really enjoy seeing it. But even this one here that is your game character, it still feels more like it's a rendered image. All your colors, even though the textures are very kind of like one tone. It's not showing that can you make an actual game character, right? It shows some of the kind of technical side, but take some of the characters that you have here, like some of the females especially are absolutely gorgeous, and take them all the way through, to
Yeah.
really show that entire process, which
Yeah.
will be awesome because there's some really gorgeous sculpts, and I'll definitely echo what Judd said too. Some of the ones that are here, especially the girl that's here, are to me are at a much different level than some of the older ones.
Yeah.
Like if I look at this guy especially, it's definitely out of all of them my least favorite. Even the forms that are on um, the forms on his face, feel a tiny bit lumpy. I'm not seeing the full structure that's kind of underneath. Uh, and that's a really big thing is really seeing some of the kind of plain kind of differences that are going to be on here, and you get a very nice feel to this stuff on the females, and this guy's pretty nice too,
Yeah.
but he's one of my least favorite. But to what Judd said, if I look at I'm gonna see that, and I don't want to be brought down, and I don't think anybody else wants to be brought down. You want to show your best stuff, and you have a lot of stuff, so it wouldn't hurt your portfolio by any means.
Yeah. I mean, you've got a lot. I think that the trick is like, few quality pieces, then a lot where there's, discrepancy in the quality. But anyway, overall, if you took some of these characters and you textured them and sort of got them into games, yeah, I think you would stand out and shine. The stuff
Yeah.
is very, very, very nice. Cool. All right. Do you want to jump on to the next one, Rich? We should sort of go through it a little bit quicker.
You want to start on this one, Judd?
Yeah, I'm sure. Do you want to just let me just sort of make my screen a bit bigger? Yeah, cool. All right, so this is Ali's. Cool, Ali. So again, I think one thing I really like on yours is the variety of things. There seems to be a sort of a skill set that ranges from 2D stuff to 3D stuff and environment stuff, and so you got a lot of variety, which is really nice, and different types of characters, like animals and creatures and birds and things, and then humans and stuff like that. Um, Now, this is subjective, right? And these critiques are subjective. Personally, I find the work to be a bit dark. It's a little bit like very sort of, skeletons and things like that. And so that's fine. No one's saying you should create, happy, smiley characters all the time. But it does, when I look at it, I do have a hard time translating some of it into things that I would envision in games and things. So some of the stuff with the animals and the skulls and the creatures and that kind of stuff, it's a bit hard to sort of necessarily translate that into things that are applicable for me. But that is quite a subjective comment. But it does, I think when people see your portfolio as a whole, they might just get a feeling that's like, some of this work is a little bit kind of a little bit dark and a little bit creepy, almost too horror-esque. And then, Rich, if you just clicked into, I think, sort of say like the Mel Gibson guy, I think that's kind of a good one to sort of just look at. So the one thing that I think is cool is that just from far, I could already tell that it was Mel Gibson. So there is a sense of likeness in there. But I think for you, the one thing I would do is step back and focus on really getting a good sense of anatomy and proportions. Just off the top of my head, just looking at it, the neck feels really thick. Some of your forms are flat. Things like that. I think if a lot of guys want to produce a lot of pieces, but if you sort of step back and took the sensibility you have for likeness, and then applied that in one piece where you really focus on getting your anatomy, your forms, you put it online, you get feedback on it, that sort of thing, and you really got that right. If you get it right and you get it. You sort of acquire those skills on one model, one character. As you then go for the next ones, you're going to keep kind of improving with it. So I think you just got to up your anatomy. That's kind of the big thing for me when I look at your anatomy and your form, your sense of proportion, your structure, all that kind of stuff. I think would really help you quite a lot with that. So yeah, that's my comments on that.
So my big critique on this comes down to pure anatomy. Unfortunately, that's going to be one of the biggest things people are going to look at, because if you have poor anatomy, it's going to translate into every other kind of facet of your work. Your 2D skills are actually really nice, and they show that you have an understanding of it. So, my big thing for you would be keep focusing on the 3D and keep trying to understand that sculptural sense. I think you're definitely missing, and you could see this in the Mel Gibson. You could see it actually in most of these, is that you're missing a structure that sits underneath, and the feeling of there's like a skull that's under there. Like it needs to feel solid. Your transitions need to feel right, and the anatomy in general, to be honest, is just a little bit off. Now, I don't know if when you're looking at these 2D pieces, if you're just purely copying or if you kind of like understand what's kind of going on there. But I think a lot of this is probably just going to be a repetition from the sculptural side to try to take some of those things and translate it properly, because it's unfortunately the weakest part of this, and it's going to be the hardest part to really look past. Even looking at some of the body stuff. Everything is always round, right? There's nothing that gives defined planes. And if you look at any anatomy, even though it might look round, it's one of the biggest things that I think all new students kind of suffer from, is there are planes in everything. There are planes in all human anatomy, right? All over the place, and it's the multiple planes coming together which will make something feel like it's round, but it also feels like it's solid. And that's the thing, the structure that really sits underneath of it. And that's the thing that really needs to be focused on.
Yeah. And I will just say, Ali, like, first, I think you're somebody who could benefit great from the school, like, in terms of where your work is. I think the school would offer you a lot. But, just be careful with, and I'm going back to this, I do think it's an important point, just be careful with some sort of forcing or kind of doing ideas that are too kind of weird and abstract. It's it's not about killing your artistic spirit. It's not about trying to like force you into to conforming. But like for me, when I open up and I see like a body, an anatomy body, and then I see like tree branches come out of it, it's just a little bit weird. It just kind of makes me go like, what is the idea here? What is your creative sensibility? And unfortunately, that is, in the industry, you are going to have to apply a creative sensibility to your work. You're not always going to get like a full concept ready to go. They're going to say, take a stab at this, see what you think, try to do something. And I think that, you've got to kind of at least just try to make sure that your stuff isn't too kind of abstract and crazy. And again, you could also respond to that saying, that's my creativity, that's what I'm into, that's what I like, and that's fine. But that would just be my sort of response looking at it.
Yeah, I echo that. I actually agree with it. It's definitely the first response where it's like, yeah, there's some different stuff in here, and again, it's not taking away from your personal side, but when you're making a portfolio, you definitely want to appeal to the people that are going to be looking at it, and you want things that are applicable to what you're going to be doing. So if you apply to a game company, you want stuff that's going to be, in the sense that they could take it and be like, oh, I know this guy could do the work. And if all you see are, weird things with skulls and hearts and bat wings coming out of it, it's hard to take that one-to-one and just apply it. I think it's just the reality of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Let's move on. So, Rich, who's the next guy that you have? Ahmed. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Is it up already? Okay.
Yeah,
so,
up, yeah.
Ahmed, you actually have a lot of really nice stuff on here as well, and a good variety, which is also really nice. And the nice thing about this is that you are focusing on a lot of humans, and what it does show, what is really good about this is that it does become very applicable to the game industry in general, because look at most games, right? Like game character artists are going to be focusing on primarily humans. There are games that will have monsters and creatures, but I think I would say the majority are going to be some version of a person, right? So definitely looking at this from a portfolio standpoint, it's going to be really big at probably the majority of the companies and studios right now, which is a good thing. I definitely would love to see a little bit more, again, of the kind of game side of stuff. It looks like most things, unless I'm kind of wrong, are just the kind of high sculpts, but take some of these and translate them into game, again, to show that you can do it. Otherwise, again, there's going to be that barrier that somebody's going to say, can he actually do it? In terms of the sculpts in general, there's definitely some really nice stuff that's going on here. I would say that the big thing is definitely, again, that solid structure and foundation. A lot of the faces, a lot of the body, it's getting a little bit soft, and that's probably the best way that I can kind of describe it. And I'd want to see a little more structure and just some of that underlying, I guess, just bone and structure and transitions of forms, as opposed to everything just being very soft and subtle, the transitions. But there's definitely some really nice stuff here. So it's not that you're not too far off of it. It's definitely something that just needs to be, really, really specifically tailored. I would also say you definitely need to get some work on some of your folds. The best way to do this is definitely a lot of reference for this, but you'd never want to kind of get into that just scratching folds on top of your actual sculpt. All folds in general, if you look at cloth, they happen because you're actually bunching the cloth up, right? So if you look at something like this, it looks like the cloth has never been bunched up, but you're just throwing some random kind of lines on there, which doesn't make sense. If lines are going to happen, the cloth is going to bunch. You're going to get silhouette breaks from that. All those things need to actually come into account for the cloth to actually look real. And the nice thing is that you're getting some hard transitions at the end, which isn't looking lumpy, and that's a very important thing, because it is giving me the sense, especially from far, what the material is. Now it's just about the internal structure of the lines that really need to be kind of improved and focused on.
Yeah.
But there
I'll
is some
just say.
nice stuff in here,
Oh,
to be
sorry.
honest.
Sorry,
Go.
Richie. I'll just yeah, okay, cool. I'll just say from my perspective, look, I agree with everything Rich is saying. I think it looks there's some very cool stuff. The human stuff makes it very applicable. Like when I look at this portfolio, I'm like, okay, this guy, is on the track to getting a job at a game studio because this is what game studios look for. Um, I think it's just a general sweep of like just anatomy and structural stuff and like Rich said, class stuff, whatever, to just take it to the next level. And I think if it's like right now the stuff is looking really cool, but once you look close at it, there's some structural and anatomy things, whatever, that kind of fall apart a little bit, and even just sculptural sensibility things in terms of forms working well together and stuff. Understanding where to soften things a bit, where to make things more pronounced, so that they play nicely together. And I think if that's just that little bit, that layer of stuff that just separates like good from brilliant. And I think you just need an overall to all of the pieces. You just need kind of an overall sense of that, and then it would be an outstanding portfolio. So yeah, that's my take.
Yeah.
Cool, Rich. I think we've got time for. I think we could do about one or two more. So let's move on to the next one. I just want to see if the guy's in here. There was a rigging guy who sent you stuff. I just want to see if he's in the thing. We're not going to cover rigging because we're not. There's not a lot of rigging people in here, but yeah. But I can see you are in here. Aditya, I think your name is Aditya. Aditya, what I'll do is I'll send you something privately offline, just giving you some feedback on your reel, because it's a rigging thing, and so it's a little bit difficult to do that because this is primarily for exclusively for character artists in a sense. Meaning we're talking about character artist stuff. So yeah, I don't want to bore everyone else with rigging stuff. Cool.
Okay, so this person in general, this is actually a very interesting portfolio Judd and I were kind of talking about because at first glance, it's actually a really beautiful, well presented portfolio where each individual piece is solid, right? It's extremely solid. It's rendered nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything is extremely appealing. It's professional on all levels, which is amazing, right? So, I think even for some of the other ones, like if you're going to be showing off colored rendered images, the worst thing you could possibly do is not have everything come together. Because if it doesn't all come together, you're actually better off just showing just the sculpt or just the textures or something else. And this portfolio shows everything coming together beautifully. It is really nice rendering, really nice composition. Um, the odd thing is, again, I'm gonna apply this to just video game characters in general. The problem is it's not showing that aspect, right? So if this is the thing that you are interested in, one, you need to take some of these pieces into proper game assets. Two, you need to broaden yourself a little bit, right? So everything here is definitely more on the cutesy kind of cartoony style, which is awesome. But looking at the industry as a whole, especially right now, it does slightly go into some different directions. It doesn't mean that there aren't games that are going to be like this. It's just if you're looking at especially more the AAA kind of scene, you're going to need more probably humans, more anatomy, like things that are a little bit more believable and real or applicable, right? So just look at a lot of the games that are actually out there, and you're going to probably want to start creating pieces that feel like they could fit into a lot of those. Otherwise, what's going to happen is people are going to come to this website and they're going to be like, wow, this is amazing, but I don't know if he could actually do the work that I need from my game. Now, hopefully what this could show is that you have that talent to do it. It's just it is a very different skill set to do stuff that is, this more I'm going to say more cartoony to the things that are a little more believable and realistic. And most of the games do kind of fall into that kind of aspect. But it's a gorgeous portfolio.
Yeah, we obviously discussed all these portfolios, so we obviously echo each other in a lot of ways. But But you know, the tree guy I think is fantastic. He's super cute. He's super appealing. You know, I would love to have a little statue on my desk of that guy. It's kind of that cool. But it's just, yeah, it's just exactly what Rich said. It's just when I look at the portfolio, if I'm, let's say I'm, you know, whoever at X company, you know, Naughty Dog or Blizzard or Riot or any of these companies, and I look at the portfolio and I go, okay, you know, Joel from The Last of Us, Darius from League of Legends, you know, well, you know, a StarCraft character. I can't see any of that in this work. And so it makes it difficult, you know, as in that way. And so unfortunately, it's unfortunate. I mean, it's a good point to bring this up. Um, you have to cater your portfolio not just to the industry you want to work in, but sometimes even to the company you want to work in, like you want to work for, right? Like so, if you want to work on Ratchet and Clank, and that is your like dream, you have to make stuff that suits Ratchet and Clank. And this portfolio starts to feel more like that. If you want to work on The Last of Us, you have to cater your portfolio to that type of work, and it's just the reality of the industry. So you've just got to be conscious of that. You know, in terms of the work that's here, if this is the kind of work you want to do, it's brilliant. It's very, very cool. You know, the one thing I will just quickly say or separately is the guy that's standing with his arms out and he's smiling. Yeah, that guy. If you're gonna do a piece like this, and I don't know if you pose the river, but definitely make sure if you pose a character, you pose him well. Like for me, the straight leg, it just feels very awkward. It's like he's turned, his chest is turned one way, his belt is turned another way, his leg is straight, which you know doesn't feel like he's got weight and he's sitting on. So you know it's great that you're posing him, but make sure when you pose the character that you really find a nice, comfortable looking pose. And a lot of the times, the best thing to do is just pick quite a simple pose and try not to overpose. So for me, when I looked at that character, I couldn't love him in the way I wanted to because of the posing. But I think the design and everything in the execution is very cool. All right, cool. That's it. All right, we got, Rich, I think we got, like, we can get through two more, I think, quickly. Well, let's do one more, and then we'll go back to questions, and then let's do one more, because I think we've got about 10 minutes left. We'll go a little over, but we don't want to go too far over. Yeah, I'll talk to this one, right, Rich? Because I had, yeah, okay, cool. So Wagner, we saw this, and again, like, prime example, very similar to the previous one. Brilliant, awesome, amazing motion graphics stuff. We were even joking, saying that like we would use you to design logos and stuff for us for the school, like as a graphic designer, because you just got brilliant motion graphic sensibility and design sensibility. So those skills are fantastic. There is obviously some 3D stuff in there too, but you know, on the whole, I'd say that the big thing is exactly like the previous portfolio. It's just there just isn't stuff that feels like game stuff, right? Like again, like realistic humans. So if you compare this portfolio to say two portfolios before with all the ZBrush sculpts and the humans, that's the kind of portfolio that games people will be looking for. This portfolio exactly. That's kind of got game type of stuff. And when you jump back, this is very graphic design, motion graphic stuff. So if your goal is to move, and one thing I will say, I understand, like a lot of the times this is industry stuff because you're in a country, like I live in South Africa. In South Africa, the majority of the type of work you would get working at a commercial's house or whatever is going to be this type of stuff, so your portfolio becomes that. But if you want to work in the games industry, you got to go home and work on stuff outside of work that allows you to cater your portfolio towards the kind of things you want to do. So if you want to work in games, you've got to tailor your work more towards games. And that means more realistic type humans, creatures, mechs, orcs, like just cool kind of the kind of stuff you see in games, as cheesy as some of it might be. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I'm gonna echo that. Like I said, we talked about this one too, and it's just, I think it's the reality of this industry in general. A lot of probably most of the times, the first thing somebody is going to do is they're going to look at a portfolio and they're going to say, can this person do the thing that we are doing, right? So if it's somebody from StarCraft, they're going to say, can they make a StarCraft model? If there's somebody from, you know, The Last of Us, they're going to say, can you make a character from The Last of Us? And what it doesn't mean is that you have to create every single thing under the sun, which is normally what people, you know, think. But it just means, especially in the beginning, tailor towards the places you actually want to go and start building your portfolio like that. It will give you the best chance. Otherwise, what happens is we will look at this and we will say, it's just hard to take that and translate it directly into what we're doing. And then the portfolio gets passed on very quickly. So it's the hard part, but just look at what's out there, look at the games that you're interested in, and go for that.
Yeah. Cool. All right. You can stop sharing the screen, Rich. We're going to go back to questions quick, and then we're going to conclude. So some of the questions and if you guys do have any other questions now, especially now that we've critiqued stuff, if you have questions about your critique or another person's critique or anything really that we've said, please ask. We'll try to go through some of these questions relatively quick. Yeah. So we left off. One of them was, after we finish the course, can we still contact you guys? I think Leslie wrote that. And the answer to that is easy, man. Absolutely. We want you to stay in contact with us. There's some people in here, that took the tech art stuff. Fabio was one of them who wrote earlier. And I keep in contact with all those guys. I help them out with their reel. They've sent me their reel after the course. They've sent me questions about interviews. They were going to job interviews. They asked me some advice. And and I've kept in contact with all of them. We want you guys to keep in contact with us, right? We're not turning you out and trying to get rid of you, right? We're trying to create a sustainable family type of environment where you guys then are part of the Game Artist Academy family. You guys will hopefully promote the school. You'll even, hopefully at some point come back and teach in the school. So, and if you need advice on your things, that's part of when you signed up for that, right? For basically lifetime advice and friendship and everything else with us. So that's a very, very easy answer for us to give. Yeah. Okay, cool. If we really hit some problems, we don't know what to do, or ask some suggestions. Oh, that's just part of the same question. Leslie's asking if he hit problems or if you needed to ask for some suggestions. So yeah, absolutely. And then there was a question, Rich, how does the school life and course program look like? We spoke about that a bit in the beginning. Maybe you just want to just kind of quickly just go over that again, Rich, just some basics of what it's like.
Yeah, sure. So we talked about the course in general, right, in terms of how that's structuring. The way that it works on I guess I would say on a daily basis is we have a custom website that was built, which is actually you could check out a lot of it. It's based off of Schoology. So if you guys go to Schoology.com, it can give you a little bit of insight. That's the platform that we're actually using. It's catered towards what we do, and what you get is pretty much a Facebook feed, right? So every single time that you log on, it's like any post that you're going to be doing, it comes on, and you literally just get a streaming feed on a daily basis. And what it allows is a lot of interaction, right? You can post links. We encourage everybody to post images of their homework on a weekly basis. So that becomes the hub and the platform every single day for where we do everything. And then everything is kind of posted from there. So we have a live session that happens once a week, and our live session gets posted on the Schoology site. And then from there, we go into a similar to this Hangout, except a lot more interactive. So everybody's kind of there. There isn't this delay, and you get this back and forth with your individual teachers, and this happens once a week for an hour. And that hour is literally the ask any questions you want, right? It could be questions from the homework, or it could be just anything in general. What it tends to be is a lot more of just kind of like a social interaction and talking point. So we get a lot of questions about just the industry in general, or different situations we've been in. A lot of times that will pertain towards the homework in general, but it just gives that platform to talk freely and talk open, and that's the type of school that we are. We are a lot more casual from that standpoint of wanting it to feel like it's kind of like a family where we're helping out as best as possible. So a lot of the students really love that aspect of it. And I think that's definitely one of the biggest part. Now, in addition to it, homework is submitted through, again, the Schoology website on a weekly basis, and then you get a personalized critique, and that goes also up on the site for everybody to see. So students, again, are encouraged to kind of look through everybody's critiques, just so they kind of get a sense of what we are doing for everybody. And then it becomes a social environment because we really want the class to feel like they're a class and they help each other. And when we get even further into the terms, which is about like term 5, we actually start doing things that are a bit more collaborative from that aspect. So we do as much as we can to make it feel like you're part of an actual school while being online.
Yeah. And like, yeah, so just kind of one thing to just point out, a lot of people are not sure about, like all your video lectures are pre-recorded, so you don't have to be available at a specific time, only for the live session, which is once a week. You can watch the videos at any time that suits you. Cool. And then there was a question though, even though, and I think this is Liz again, even though this is nothing related to the class, the Game Master Academy classes, I have a question about the industry. I talked with some game industry and related industry people just in Japan, since that's where Leslie's from. It gives me a feeling that the role of the animator is not as important than a modeler or a rigger. I don't know if the person I spoke to, if they're like that, or is this true in the game industry? Animators is not that of an important role, because I am an animator myself, which is why I ask that. So Leslie's an animator who's taking the course as a character artist, and he obviously heard in Japan that an animator is not necessarily as important as a character artist or a rigger. And so he's asking if that's true. Riggers are the most important. I'm just going to come on and say that first and foremost. No, I'm joking. So I don't think that's true. I don't think that any one discipline is necessarily more important. I think what you'll find is that every company values different disciplines. Some value them equally. Some value animators more than everyone else. Some value programmers more than anyone. Like Naughty Dog, as an example, as a company, valued engineers and programmers like heavily. They were like really like the people that they kind of like valued. And then I would say almost second to that was like environment people at Naughty Dog, right? Like environments.
Actually, it was. I feel like it's environment and animation. Like
And
it's weird.
animators,
Like
yeah, we're very much,
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough. Like I think Judd is 100% right. Where different companies are just going to value them completely different. But I can't say that one is valued more than others because I have seen companies that the animator is the most important thing. So yeah, I think it's just going to be very different. But I'd like to believe that most companies, if they're smart companies and they're good companies, are going to value everybody as
Yeah.
equally as they possibly can because they're all important to making a game. And that's what this is about. We are making a game, and it's how do we collaborate with all departments? Because if one of them isn't working, it's not going to work as a whole. So
Yeah, yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, obviously, there's the reality, right? I mean, the ideal is that everyone's valued equally, and that's what you hope for, and some companies do. And then there's the reality, and the reality is some people are harder to find than others. Like Richard said earlier, visual effects art, like particle effects artists, are quite hard to come by. So if a company has a really good particle effects artist, they are obviously not necessarily that they're going to value that person more than a really good animator, but those people are hard to come by. So there is definitely they might find that they're paid a little more or whatever it is. But every company, that dynamic changes. We'd be lying to you if we said that everyone in companies are valued equally, because that's not true, right? The better you are, the more valued you are. The harder your position is to find and to fill, the more valued you are. But that's just the reality. That's just life, So the best thing you can do to make sure you're valuable is to be really, really good at what you do, right? Like a brilliant character artist in a company is going to be valued, period. Doesn't matter whether that company generally likes character artists or values them or not. Like if you're brilliant, it shines. People know, they get it. It makes a difference. So the thing that you can control is making sure you're really good at what you do. Yeah, I think that's kind of
yeah,
kind of that.
yeah, and it's kind of like if you're a good game developer, regardless of what that is, you're going to be valued.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, character artists are very valued. Animators are
Yeah,
very valued.
extremely
Like it's
valuable.
really, yeah, yeah. So, do we want to? There's no more questions now. Does anybody have any last questions? Is there any one last question that we should answer? Will basically, if anybody posts, I know there's a bit of a delay, so we'll wait like 60 seconds. But if you have a last question, ask it now. Well, while you asking the questions, we'll announce the two people. So the people that won the free semester giveaway is Renato and Edgar. Dun, dun, dun. So if you guys want to sign up and you're interested, yeah. If you guys want to sign up and you're interested, let us know. You'll have a free semester. If not, please let us know as well via email, and then we'll go down the list of people that we think deserve it. So there are a bunch of people that we didn't get around to doing critiques. We do apologize, obviously. We will try to send you emails just giving you some sort of breakdown summaries of that. It might not be immediately, but we'll definitely try to get around to that as well. And yeah, like I said, I did share your stuff for the rigging stuff. I'll also do that because it's a separate thing. Okay, so we're going to wait to see if there's any last questions. That's it, right, Rich? Is there anything else if no other questions come?
I think so. I think that is, yeah.
Cool. We really want to thank you guys for joining us. You know, it's a great opportunity for us to kind of get more info of the school out there and to really kind of you know, just interface with you guys, give you some sense of what it's like at the school. Thanks to our students for coming as well, those of you who did. It's really cool. Like, our students have been awesome. They've been very supportive of everything we've done. They've attended a lot of the things we do. I mean, they've done interviews and stuff. If you go check out the website, you'll see some interviews and stuff. And obviously, they you know, have all their work posted on the site. So if you want to see the kind of work that the students are doing, definitely go check out the website. There's some really, really amazing stuff up there. Cool. So, looks like there's no more questions. The delay does kind of suck, so hopefully your question doesn't come up once we've ended it. But anyway, we'll end it at that. So
and
hopefully
if you guys do have any other
it.
questions, you know, feel free to go onto the website as well, and it will come directly to us, and we will answer them as quick as we possibly can.
And sign up for our newsletter if you're not signed up. All Game Artists Academy information will be sent through there. You'll get the newsletter anytime there's an event like this or anything else happening, any specials, anything, it'll be on there. So definitely sign up for that. And we just want to thank Pride and Portia, who are our two marketing sort of, you know, admin people for us, who really kind of helped put this thing together. They were fantastic. Cool. So we will hopefully see you guys around. And thank you again for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Cool. Later.